Hello everyone, welcome back to PokeXplanations, the show where I talk about how our world would be if Pokemon really existed. I bet you're just dying to know what we're talking about today. Wait, what? What? Aw, man. I hate you, title! I hate you! So yes, we're going to be talking about Treecko, Grovyle, and Sceptile today. So, let's go ahead and start with Treecko's descriptions. Ruby version. Treecko has small hooks on the bottom of its feet that enable it to scale vertical walls. This Pokemon attacks by slamming foes with its thick tail. Sapphire version. Treecko is cool, calm, and collected. It never panics under any situation. If a bigger foe were to glare at this Pokemon, it would glare right back without conceding an inch of ground. Emerald version. It makes its nest in a giant tree in the forest. It ferociously guards against anything nearing its territory. It is said to be the protector of the forest trees. Fire Red and Leaf Green versions. It quickly scales even vertical walls. It senses humidity with its tail to predict the next day's weather. Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum versions. The soles of its feet are covered by countless tiny spikes, enabling it to walk on walls and ceilings. This next bit of information about Treecko isn't really listed anywhere, but I thought it was worth mentioning anyway. Treecko are actually based off of the eastern stone gecko in parts of Australia. This gecko is known to hide during the day, possibly sleep, and during dusk go out and feed, or eat, or hunt, however you want to put it, but it's safe to say that Treecko is also nocturnal and carnivorous, so throwing that out there. So we can tell right off the bat that Treecko is a pretty awesome Pokemon, I think. It's strong, it's athletic, it's undoubtedly brave, and it's very well adapted to its woodland environment. Treecko's ability to predict the next day's weather is undoubtedly something that has to be brought up whenever you talk about this Pokemon. It's a very important trait and would be world-changing were it not for Pokemon like Castform who are entirely weather-based. However, be it that a Treecko is more common, hypothetically in this show, if Pokemon really existed, Treecko would be more common than Castform. Getting back on topic, since Treecko would be more available to us, able to catch, find, etc., however you want to call it, than Castform, it makes a nice alternative. I am kind of curious though as to whether or not it can predict anything other than rain, because its tail seems to, by description, only pick up humidity. It can only sense humidity, it can only tell anything from that, and high humidity is rain, it's water in the atmosphere. So even by itself, Treecko is pretty significant. Not massively world-changing, but I have one other thing I'd like to say about Treecko, but it does apply to all three of these Pokemon, so I'll save that for last. So now let us move on to Grovyle and its descriptions. Ruby version. The leaves growing out of Grovyle's body are convenient for camouflaging it from enemies in the forest. This Pokemon is a master at climbing trees and jungles. Sapphire version. This Pokemon adeptly flies from branch to branch in trees. In a forest, no Pokemon can ever hope to catch a fleeing Grovyle, however fast they may be. Fire Red and Leaf Green versions. Its strongly developed thigh muscles give it astounding agility and jumping performance. Once again, as I said with Treecko, reading its descriptions, the following information is not written anywhere specifically, but I thought it was worth bringing up. Grovyle is somewhat based off of a prehistoric reptile by the name of Velociraptor mongoliensis, who, as the name sort of points out, was a close relative to the common Velociraptor that we all know and love from the Jurassic Park trilogy. And it roamed around southern Mongolia about 150 million years ago during the late Jurassic period. Now this creature wasn't purely covered in the sort of scaly skin that we know the other Velociraptors to be, but instead it had evolved at the time to have a mixture of feathers and the scaly skin. The feathers covering its forearms and down its back and its legs and part of its tail. People speculate this is a dinosaur that would have evolved into what we know to be the modern bird, pretty much. The missing link being the Archaeopteryx, which is more of a bird-like dinosaur, pretty much just a smaller version of this to summarize it for you. there were very few visual differences between Velociraptor mongoliensis and a Archaeopteryx at the time, other than size, and the Archaeopteryx had more feathers than the Velociraptor mongoliensis. Given the time that this thing lived, it would have been very carnivorous, as we know other velociraptors to be. Grovyle is definitely a carnivore, and I couldn't find any information on whether or not it retained the nocturnal-ish. I say ish because I am only assuming that Treecko would have been nocturnal. I cannot find any information as to whether or not its eyes had evolved or something had evolved with Treecko into Grovyle that would have given it the ability to run around during the day or sleep during the night. I don't know. I'm going to assume so because from what I could tell, the Velociraptor mongoliensis, which as I just said Grovyle is loosely based off of, I could not find anything that said it was nocturnal. So I'm going to assume that Grovyle is not. I'm not saying it doesn't have the ability to be, but primarily I'm saying that it hunts during the day and will sleep during the night, much like us. So after that long-winded explanation of the Velociraptor mongoliensis, really that's all you can say about this thing. It is a hunter. It is a very, very powerful, very fast woodland hunter. As its Sapphire description pointed out, you are not going to catch this thing in a woodland environment. It's too fast, it's too well camouflaged, this thing will lose you. And more importantly, and I'm sure that it retains that same trait Treecko had of being very, very aggressive towards anyone that gets near its habitat. So this Pokemon is very, very dangerous. All that being said though, this is still just an evolved Treecko. The only thing it did was it grew leaves on parts of its body and it got a little bigger and stronger. There is really no change in its habitual behavior that I can notice. I'm sure if more research can be done on Grovyle that we would find something different, something majorly different, probably the fact that it hunts more than Treecko would, but other than that I think it retains that same "this is my forest, not yours, get out, I'm gonna kill you," that kind of behavior, but it's just stronger and able to do something about it now that really Treecko wasn't. I mean, Treecko had its tail, but this thing knows how to use its wrist things for its wrist leaves for, you know, cutting stuff. It'll cut you to pieces with leaves. I wouldn't get near this thing. But as I said in concluding Treecko, I have one other thing I'd like to say about Grovyle, but it applies to all three of these Pokemon, so let's just move on to Sceptile, and then I will get on to that point. So, Sceptile. And where would this show be if it were not for the descriptions? Ruby version. The leaves growing on Sceptile's body are very sharp-edged. This Pokemon is very agile. It leaps all over the branches of trees and jumps on its foes from above or behind. Sapphire version. Sceptile has seeds growing on its back. They are said to be bursting with nutrients that revitalize trees. This Pokemon raises the trees in a forest with loving care. Aww. Emerald version. In the jungle, its power is without equal. This Pokemon carefully grows trees and plants. It regulates its body temperature by basking in sunlight. So, first of all, let me just point this out to everyone. If you read anywhere on any game, you can go to Bulbapedia, you can go to Cerebi.net, you can go anywhere and you will find a height chart for Sceptile. Sceptile is about 5 feet 7 inches tall. That scares me to death, and I'll tell you exactly why this scares me so much. You have an extremely agile creature jumping around trees that it's very well camouflaged in, that's as big as you are, and has razor sharp leaves and needles growing out of its body, who is very territorial about plants and will slice up anything that tries to impede on the forest it calls home. That's terrifying to me. But stepping away from Sceptile's more violent and deadly side, let's look at the seeds on its back. I actually did some research on this because they really fascinated me. Like, it is able to grow seeds on its back, or is able to carry them around at least, to gather the nutrients they need, and I don't know if it's able to pick them off and plant them. I would assume so, because that seems like something it should be able to do, considering it's carrying the seeds on its back. These seeds act a lot like, well, peanut seeds do. They take in a ton and tons and tons and tons of nitrogen. So that got me thinking, what kind of organ or biological system has to be inside Sceptile to be able to sustain and collect all this nitrogen? My best guess to that would have to be that it's essentially like our stomach. And let me explain this. I'm pretty sure everyone here is familiar with stomach acid, how it works. It dissolves food. Let's think about that stomach acid as this nitrogen. The kind of organ that has to exist in Sceptile's back specifically, if it is a solid chunk or two, it could be in the shape of our lungs, we don't know, or Sceptile could be a nitrogen-based creature, we don't know that either. The kind of organ that's in Sceptile's back has to have a sort of regenerating lining, much like the inside of our stomachs do. This nitrogen just eats away at the lining of that organ, and it constantly regenerates like our stomach lining, or this organ is so advanced that it takes that nitrogen and converts it to oxygen for Sceptile to breathe and survive on, while still holding it for the seeds to collect. I don't know. That's my best guess towards the subject. Please leave me a comment down below if you have a better guess about that. I would greatly appreciate to hear something about it, because that's very, very interesting to me, and I hope it's interesting to you guys too. And of course, my theory is entirely based off of Sceptile being a oxygen breather like us. We actually have creatures here that can breathe hydrogen. They're found on the ocean floor. I can't remember offhand how deep, but it's a type of shark that breathes hydrogen, not oxygen. But getting through all of that, and in conclusion to these Pokemon, I'd like to bring up that final point I've been talking about through the whole video, and that these Pokemon are, and I really don't know how to phrase this, guys, warriors of Celebi is the best way I can think to put it, or Celebi's army, or something like that, because the only major world-changing properties that I think all three of these Pokemon have is that they are less powerful forms of Celebi, in the sense that if they nest in the forest, all of them, in the sense that if they nest in a forest, all of them, like hundreds of Treeckos, and just so on and so forth, you know, you got a bunch of Grovyles evolved, and then you have finally the Sceptile leaders. I don't know if that's how it would work, but that's how I envision it. If we came into these forests and we tried to make progress, you know, we had bulldozers and log cutters and just everybody coming in, these Pokemon would launch a full-scale counterattack against us to heed our progress in this forest. They would slaughter us, and we would have not really limited defenses, but it would be a struggle to stop the charge of these Pokemon, because you have Sceptile, who I didn't include this information. I believe it was from Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum versions. It was really already said in the original description of Sceptile and Ruby, but Sceptile's arm blade, the double leaf blade things, the Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum description read it off as being able to cut through very hard steel. Now you've got a bunch of these things coming at, like, say, a bulldozer or a person or a crane, and they're just gonna cut through that like a hot knife through butter. I mean, just punch right through it, and I don't really see a way that we could easily stop them from doing that. Militaristic means, yes, but why? But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. I know I had a lot of fun filming it. This was definitely one of the funner ones to film, and I always like it when there's a lot more information about the Pokemon I can find. And these guys were definitely good with the information. But if you enjoyed this video, guys, please give me a thumbs up down below, and an add to favorites should be right about here. And subscribe if you haven't already. You can also click down below in the description to find a full playlist of all of these PokeXplanations episodes I've ever done. This one included as the last one, if I haven't released another one. If I have, you can find that one in there too. I put all of them in there. If you have a Pokemon you'd like me to review in the future, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment down below. Maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't. And speaking of viewer comments, this episode was of course suggested by this person here. Thank you very much for your comment. Treecko and its evolutionary chain is definitely one of my favorites. I really enjoyed talking about the little guy. The awesome Sceptile image I used throughout this episode was made by a guy over on DeviantArt who goes by the name of Zeus54. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, dude, please contact me over there and let me know. Thank you. He does some really awesome work, so link down in the description. I'll put it as the top link in the description. Go check out his DeviantArt, and you can also find a link to mine in there. My art isn't nearly as impressive as his, or very Pokemon related even, but you can go give him a watch, and while you're over there, give me a watch if you want to. I'd greatly appreciate that, and I'm sure he would too. But that does it for this episode, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Give me a thumbs up down below and an add to favorites if you really enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys later.